Hey guys, Youthful Yields here. So we're going to be going over Group C distributions today. And yeah, so let me get this kind of configured here real quick so it's easier to see. So starting out at the very top, QDTY, we can see a 17% distribution rate. If we look at QDTY here, we have only one distribution before that, which was 34%, which is pretty good, but fortunately it's gone down a little bit. The last price is $46 as well. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of expected the last 2 weeks of the stock market, to be honest. SDTY, last two distributions were hovering about 20%. This one's a bit lower at 18%. Same reason why. But yeah, 17-cent distribution. Moving on to GPTY. This one has a little bit more data than those two. Got this one is 37% distribution, which actually is the highest we've seen so far. That's pretty nice. The trailing 3-month average is 34%, so we're above that. Moving on to LFGY. We can see here a 61% distribution, which actually is kind of around the last two, yeah. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. 3-month average of 66%, so just a bit lower than that, but overall, actually a pretty high distribution still. You can see though that the share price does seem to be declining. And if we look at LFGY today, it's at $40. So it actually went back up a little bit, but not as much as it did. I think this just had a lot of hype at the beginning. So YieldMax had a crazy 85% distribution. Now, this might look amazing on paper, but I'll tell you what happened. And that is that YieldMax, and a lot of these might be a little bit deceiving, but if we look in the last week, it's gone down quite a bit. It's about $15, $14.83. So it's gone down. And you can see that there's a slight downward trend. This is going to go even more, which is not fun because the last two distributions, you can see this one was $16.98 and then it went down almost to $15 even. So that's almost $2 difference. And then it's going to go down again about another 30 cents or something like that, which is not fun. Yes, the distribution is high, but I'm a little bit scared for next week. Let's just put it that way. Also, Group B was last week, which was NVIDIA. So that I think typically bumps it up a little bit. But you can see the annualized yield does seem to be increasing, but that's not exactly a good thing, right? I think it's a compensation kind of thing. So I'm a little bit worried for my portfolio, and I'll go into that at the end of this week. But man, these last 2 weeks have been real bloody. But moving on to YMAG, we have a 48% distribution with a 3-month average of 42%. So not as good as the last one, but honestly, we're beating the 3-month average, which is nice. This one is probably even worse the last 5 days, if I had to guess. 4% down, 1634. So yeah, this is as well just declining. I mean, it's really hard to look at all these. They're going to be all in the red for a while. So just take that, note that. Going on to Coney, we can see we have a 79% distribution with a 3-month average of 94%. So this is actually declining quite a bit, to be honest. At least this distribution. The one before the last also had a pretty low one, to be fair. But something to keep in mind. And with that, fiat is actually quite high. We can go to fiat. 101 distribution, 101% annualized yield with a 3-month average of 95%. But, I always mention this during my distribution videos. Inverse funds typically don't hold their NAV well, despite, you having an insane amount of yield. It does not matter. You got to look at the total return. So MSFO, we can see here 22% distribution, which is below the 3-month average of 26%, which that that sucks. Again, this is supposed to be one of those more stable ones. We have AMDY, which is is a 40% distribution, 3-month average of 46%, so also below its 3-month average. And look at that share price. Holy smokes, that looks like trash. We can look at AMDY here, and it's $8 currently, so it's dropped even more, and that is in quite a lot of danger, to say the least. Might get a reverse split actually. NFLY, we have a annualized distribution rate of 29%, which 3-month average is 56%, so quite below to Netflix this go around, only a 40-cent distribution. You can see 1927 NFLY. So yeah, they dropped a little bit as well, but honestly not as much as I thought. It's just probably they missed some of their premiums. So yep. ABNY, we have a 42% distribution with the 3-month average of 35%. So this is actually a little bit up. The last two have been 35% pretty much on the dot. So that's nice. A little bit of a boost. We have PyPy, PYPY, with a 35% distribution with a 3-month average of 41%. So a little bit below the 3-month average, but overall not terrible. And Ulti, we have here, with a 82% distribution and a 3-month average of 84%. Now, if we look at Ulti's price last month, we have currently it's $7.44, and it dropped about 14.5%. So something to note here as well is there was a note this week on the distributions, which is that Ulti intends to distribute weekly income to shareholders. The dates for Ulti's future distributions will be set forth on the schedule. So that's really interesting for people that are in Ulti. I don't know how healthy that is for the ETF though, right? Because this ETF is just constantly, no matter what they do, every time they throw something at it, it always just falls. Like, yeah, the yield is good, but I mean, even the yield's falling. You can see these curves actually align pretty well with each other. So I don't know. I do not know. But that's, it's exciting for some because I know a lot of people have this just because they've already had it. So, yeah. And then lastly, CVNY, which I believe this is its first distribution. Let me just add it here. CVNY. Its first distribution is 113% with a almost $4 distribution, which is pretty nice. But yeah, guys, really interesting to see these. I think the highlights of this week have been obviously, well, to be honest, not a lot of them because the last 2 weeks, like I said, have been pretty bloody for the S&P 500 and especially the NASDAQ. If we look at, stock analysis real quick and go to NASDAQ and maybe go to like the last month, you can see 5% on the NASDAQ. And if we go to S&P 500 and go here, 3.5% on the S&P. So really not that good across the board. If anything, I would say maybe the highlight for most people that are watching this video is probably YieldMax because that distribution is going to help a lot. Like, for example, this week I think I'm getting around $80, whereas usually typically get around half of that. So I'm happy, but I'm also not happy because I've lost so much money so much more money on the NAV. And as you know, with a lot of these covered call ETFs from YieldMax, at least, they're very hard to come back up, right? They typically do not easily gain capital appreciation. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of goes forward. But as always, I wish you guys a wealthy future.